In the quiet stillness of her Missouri home, surrounded by memories that span nearly 9 decades, Betty Cresson breathed her last. She was 87 years old when she died from complications related to breast cancer, according to multiple reports confirmed through individuals familiar with the family's situation. Her passing marks not just the end of a long life, but the closing of a chapter in one of modern music's most complicated family sagas, one that helped shape the emotional core of Marshall Bruce Mathers III, the artist the world knows as Eminem. Origins and early life. Details about Betty's early life are limited in public records, but what is known paints a picture of an American woman born into the post-World War II era, likely in the mid-1930s. She became a mother at a young age, giving birth to her daughter Debbie Nelson in 1955. That decision, to become a mother as a teenager, would set into motion a chain of generational challenges, triumphs, heartbreak, and resilience. Betty's daughter would later recount stories in her memoir about growing up in a large working-class family, and the early pressures that shaped her own journey into motherhood. In turn, Betty became a grandmother to a son who would grow up to be one of the most influential musicians of his generation. Eminem's early years and family struggles. Born in St. Joseph, Missouri, in October 1972, Marshall Mathers entered a world already marked by instability and hardship. His parents' relationship was fractious, and his father abandoned the family when Marshall was still a child, leaving his young mother, Debbie, to raise him alone. They moved constantly between Missouri and Detroit, often living with relatives including, at times, Betty's household. In interviews and songs, Eminem has spoken openly about the trials of his youth, the poverty, the relentless relocations, the sense of never fully belonging. As a result, the presence of extended family like Betty and her husband provided brief respite from the turbulence, even if only temporarily. Their home, back in Missouri, became a place of refuge in some of his earliest memories. These early years laid the groundwork for much of Eminem's emotional and artistic life. Songs like When I'm Gone and Cleanin' Out My Closet detail the turbulence of his upbringing, reflecting on the pain of adolescence, estrangement, and the yearning for stability. In this context, Betty was more than just a grandmother. In certain moments she was part of the sanctuary he desperately needed. A family's love and estrangement. Love and estrangement often existed side by side in this family, perhaps nowhere more clearly than in the relationship between Eminem and his grandmother. In the early 2000s, long before he became a global icon with platinum records and awards, Betty spoke publicly about her experience with her grandson. In an interview with British publication The Mirror, she expressed heartache over how their relationship had shifted over time, from a doting child who once proclaimed, "Grandma, I love you," to a young man consumed by success and fame, whom she felt became distant and dismissive. Her words revealed not bitterness, but a deep sorrow at what she perceived as a loss of connection. "Neither his mother Debbie nor I can figure out what happened to this sweet, caring youngster," she said. "In just over 12 years he's gone from telling me 'Grandma, I love you,' to 'go to hell.' It just breaks my heart." Those remarks, raw and loaded with emotion, captured the complexity, the conflicting realities, of loving a person whose life had pulled him into worlds she could barely understand. Her words humanized an often mythologized artist, reminding the public that behind the fame, there were real wounds, unspoken apologies, and unmet expectations. The shadow of loss. Debbie Nelson. Betty's daughter, Debbie Nelson, was another figure central to Eminem's personal narrative, and to Betty's life. Debbie's life and her relationship with her son were difficult, marked by arguments, estrangement, reconciliation, and painful public scrutiny. She famously sued Eminem for defamation in 2000 over lyrics that attacked her parenting, a lawsuit that was settled for a modest sum but became emblematic of the fractured relationship between parent and child. Despite the estrangement, there were moments of reconciliation, including an apology from Eminem in later songs where he expressed regret for some of the harsh words he had used. In 2013's Headlights, he attempted to make peace with the past, acknowledging the pain they both endured during his tumultuous youth. Debbie's death in December 2024, from complications related to lung cancer at age 69, was a blow to the family and to Betty in particular. It was a loss that compounded the weight of decades of emotional struggle and the public's constant gaze into their private lives. For Betty, losing her daughter may have been one of her greatest heartbreaks. The woman who had raised Debbie and watched her navigate motherhood, marriage, estrangement, and reconciliation saw her daughter's life conclude too soon. That loss was a traumatic moment in a life already marked by personal challenges. Private battle with illness. In her late 80s, Betty faced her own battle, breast cancer. Details about her diagnosis timeline have not been publicly disclosed, but what is clear is that her health had been in decline for some time as she fought complications from the disease. Her final days were spent at home in Missouri, a state intertwined with the Mathers family story from the very beginning. Complications from breast cancer can be complex and taxing, affecting much more than physical health. As patients age, the impact of cancer often extends to emotional well-being, independence, and quality of life. For someone of Betty's age, surrounded by memories of children and grandchildren who came and went through the decades, the fight was both personal and profound. The weight of absence. When Betty passed away on March 10, 2026, Eminem reportedly was not at her side, a detail that speaks to how estranged the family had become over the years. It's not uncommon in families fractured by decades of conflict for members to find themselves absent at pivotal moments, not out of lack of care, but due to emotional distance, unresolved pain, and the sheer complexity of human relationships. Yet that absence, factual as it might be, underscores the very human tension between public perception and private reality. For Eminem, who has spent decades turning his life into art, the decision to be present or absent at such moments isn't simply a personal choice. It's entwined with a lifetime of trauma, reflection, and artistic expression. The fuller circle of life. New generations rising. Amid grief over loss, there have also been moments of renewal in Eminem's life, reminders that life's story continues even as chapters close. In April 2025, his daughter Haley Jade gave birth to her first child, a son named Elliot Marshall McClintock, a name chosen in tribute to her father and reflective of M's continued legacy as both an artist and a family man. This new life brought joy and hope, and a reminder that the family's journey transcends any single generation. Furthermore, another grandchild is reportedly on the way, as his adopted daughter Elena Scott revealed her own pregnancy. In these moments, the cycle of life continues, joy interwoven with sorrow, beginnings alongside endings. Legacy and reflection. Betty Crescen's life was one that intersected with fame in a way few people ever experience. Yet her legacy isn't defined by her grandson's global success, nor should it be reduced to the headlines about estrangement and criticism. Rather, her legacy is one of a grandmother whose life was woven through the fabric of a family's triumphs and tragedies, a woman who loved, lost, hurt, and endured. Her story invites reflection on the nature of family itself, how love and misunderstanding can coexist, how forgiveness is both necessary and elusive, and how the ties that bind us can be both our greatest strength and our deepest sorrow. In closing, as the world mourns the passing of a figure who existed in proximity to one of music's giants, it's worth remembering that every human life holds depth beyond public perceptions. Betty's journey spanned nearly 9 decades, and although she may be remembered in headlines for her connection to a global superstar, her story was also one of motherhood, endurance in the face of loss, and the complex beauty of human relationships. Her departure from this world closes a chapter not just in Eminem's personal history but in a family narrative that has spanned generations, reminding us all of the enduring power of memory, legacy, and the bonds that shape who we are.